Why, hello there, Star Wars Battlefront fans. Hope you're all doing well, and I'm back again talking about some Star Wars Battlefront, but this time, Star Wars Battlefront 3. Because yes, everyone is talking about it ever since Lucasfilm Games announced the upcoming release of the Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection, which of course is coming to all platforms on March 14th with full multiplayer support. So this is a big deal. And one of the reasons why this is such a big deal is because if we look back at Star Wars Battlefront 2 by DICE, they ended support on that game back on April 28th of 2020. So that was quite a while ago. So ever since April 28th of 2020, Lucasfilm Games has not made any comments on Star Wars Battlefront, at least from what I can remember. So they've been really giving us the silent treatment until recently with the announcement of the Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection. So in a way, this is Lucasfilm saying to us that yes, we do care about you Star Wars Battlefront fans, and yes, we are interested in the Star Wars Battlefront franchise, which of course is leading us all to wonder, what about Star Wars Battlefront 3? Now, me personally, I think Star Wars Battlefront 3 is going to happen no matter what. For me personally, I want to see them stick to those classic Star Wars Battlefront roots with, Galactic Conquest Mode, and so on and so forth. Now, let's talk about who could develop such a game. I've talked about this in the past. There's developers out there like DICE, Respawn, the Call of Duty developers like Infinity Ward, Treyarch, Sledgehammer. You have the Halo Infinite team. You also have Epic Games that could also develop something like this. So there's a lot of different talented developers that could indeed make such a game. Now, I'm going to throw Arrowhead Game Studios into the mix, who of course recently released Helldivers 2. And if you have not played Helldivers 2, this game is an absolute blast. And when I played this game, I immediately said to myself, man, this feels like the classic Star Wars Battlefront games to me, with the explosions and the action and the way it flowed. There was something about Helldivers 2 that reminded me of the classic Star Wars Battlefront games, and I absolutely love Helldivers 2. It even has a mechanic in it that's very similar to the Galactic Conquest mechanic of the original Battlefront games as well, but instead, it's actually online in Helldivers 2. And this is what really got me hooked to Helldivers 2, using that galactic map, choosing the different planets to battle. You can play with random people or your friends. My bro and I, we ended up playing a game, and it was so much freaking fun. And again, if you have not played Helldivers 2, I highly recommend it. So I'm going to throw Arrowhead Game Studios into the mix here and really recommend them for a Star Wars game, whether that be a Battlefront 3 or perhaps a co-op Star Wars game as well. I mean, they could end up creating a spin-off game of their own that is set in the Star Wars universe, of course, so I'm not ruling out that possibility either. Now, we also have to talk about DICE, who of course created the newer Star Wars Battlefront 1 and Star Wars Battlefront 2 on the Frostbite engine. Of course, it had a notorious release with Star Wars Battlefront 2, all of that controversy surrounding the loot boxes and so on and so forth. You know the story by now. I'm not going to repeat it all, but DICE, they did their best to bring that game back up to par with what Star Wars Battlefront fans wanted. They introduced Conquest Mode in there, but they still didn't get it perfect in my opinion. Like, for instance, it's frustrating when you play Conquest Mode in that game, which is called Supremacy Mode, and you have to go back and forth between the capital ship and ground combat constantly. And sometimes games end up being a repetitive loop of going back and forth from ground combat up to the capital ship, back down again. I really don't like this aspect of the game. And, they didn't really fix it. It's still in there. Some people like it, but I do not like it. I prefer the classic Conquest Mode from the original Battlefront games, which is why I'm thrilled to see the Battlefront Classic Collection releasing on March 14th. Now, with that said, when it comes to DICE developing a Star Wars Battlefront 3, you can look at DICE in two ways. You can say to them, screw me once, shame on you. Screw me twice, shame on me. Or you could say to them, third time's the charm, when it comes to them developing a Star Wars Battlefront 3. So let me know how you feel about DICE right now. My feeling for DICE is kind of neutral because I think they still have to prove themselves with a launch of a game. Because Battlefield 2042 did not have a good launch at all. Neither did Battlefield 5. So their launch history has been actually quite terrible. I'm just stating the facts here. So hopefully with their next project, which is most likely Battlefield 6, they can actually launch it properly. Now, the next developer that I want to bring back up in this list is the Call of Duty developers. Now, I know some of you are going to immediately roll your eyes at this and grumble and complain, but hear me out, because Call of Duty has a massive infrastructure of developers in place to handle such a big game as Star Wars Battlefront 3. So they have Infinity Ward, they got Treyarch, they got Sledgehammer, and yes, in the past, the Call of Duty games have not been perfect, but we have to admit that the Call of Duty developers know how to pump out content, they know how to bring it to the masses, and they usually release the content on time and without problems. Now, they have had some technical issues here and there with some launches. I know that. I remember one time they launched something recently and it completely broke Warzone. So no developer is immune to this stuff happening, of course. But my point is that Call of Duty has the infrastructure in place to make a Battlefront 3. Plus, they have already proven that they can make a stellar third-person mode with the third-person matchmaking mode in Call of Duty. So, again, they have the ability, I think, to pull it off, but will Disney or Lucasfilm approach them? That's the question. And the next developer on the list is the Halo Infinite team, 343 Industries. Now, I know this might get even more eye rolls than my Call of Duty pitch, but hear me out on this one, because Halo Infinite, in my opinion, has turned into a really fun game. They've added a lot of really cool things to Halo Infinite, including the curated playlists that feature player-created content such as maps and so on and so forth. So I think the Halo Infinite team, 343 Industries, has done a pretty decent job of adding more and more content to Halo Infinite to offer something that is worthwhile to Halo fans. I love going back into Halo Infinite and playing the multiplayer in that game. It's fun, it's fast, it's chaotic, and it feels like Star Wars too. If you go and play Halo Infinite, it definitely has a Star Wars feel to it, which is why I'm also adding the 343 Industries team into this list. And to add to that even further, I think if they were to pair 343 with id Software, who of course makes the Doom series, I think that'd be magic, because id Software, they are extremely talented at making spectacular graphics. If you've ever played Doom Eternal, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That game is stunning. It has lightning fast graphics, superb frame rates, it runs very stable on all platforms. So personally, I think 343 Industries and id Software teaming up on a Battlefront 3 could be very interesting indeed. So with that all said, let me know in the comments down below who you think would be the right developer to make a Star Wars Battlefront 3. Sound off in the comments. I will see you all in the next upcoming video. We got exciting stuff coming up with the Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection, which of course is releasing on March 14th of this year. So it's right around the corner. And I'll see you all in the next video, and may the Force be with you always.